everyone. This is Jewish Talk coming to you from Nassau Community College on 90.3 WHPC, also streaming on the iHeart and the iTunes app. This program is later archived on Spreaker.com. So hi there, my name is Rabbi Perl. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Of course, this all depends on when you are listening and joining us. But you're there. Thank you so much. First, I'd like to share with you that today, this is Sunday, is the second day after the holiday of Purim. Purim was celebrated on Friday. And yesterday, Shabbos, was known as Shushan Purim. Well, I'm here to share with you that in Jerusalem, this year, the holiday of Purim is divided up into a 3-day special. It's called a triple Purim. Today is the third day and of this triple Purim, observed in Jerusalem in this manner. Now, why is this? Because the 15th day of Adar falls on a Shabbos. And a number of, let me just back up for a second. Please remember that all walled cities, going back to the time of Joshua, would actually celebrate the holiday on the 15th day of the month of Adar. This is written in the Megillah, that in conjunction with Shushan Purim, Shushan was the capital of Persia at that time, they needed an extra day to defend themselves. So while all of us celebrated in the general provinces on the 14th day, which was Friday, there was an extra day for the capital, the 15th. Okay, now that's fine. But this year, when the 15th day of the month of Adar falls out on a Shabbos, we have an issue, because a number of the mitzvahs of the celebration cannot be done, inappropriate to do it on the Shabbos. So let's just go through those mitzvahs. There's hearing the Megillah, there's giving money to the poor, there's giving gifts to friends, and there's a festival meal. Now, the Purim observances are now spread over in Jerusalem from Friday to Shabbos to Sunday. And this is how it works. Obviously, the reading of the Megillah is done on Friday, because we have the opportunity to bring in the holiday. Therefore, the reading of the Megillah in Jerusalem, in the walled cities, is on Friday. You cannot do that on Shabbos, the actual 15th, because we're afraid that we may come to carry the Megillah on the Shabbos. So that particular mitzvah is moved to Friday. We don't want to keep the poor people waiting for their support, so the money, shalach manos, is matanas levyanim, money for the poor, is performed on Friday. So in Jerusalem, they read the Megillah on Friday, they gave money to the poor on Friday. Shabbos, now which is the 15th day, on a normal circumstance it would be all these mitzvahs done on that day. The only thing they do in Jerusalem is they read a special reading, and they say of the Amalekites, and then they add the Al Nissim. But we cannot have the meal, the festival meal, because you don't want to take away from the Shabbos meal. You don't want to dilute or suddenly turn the Shabbos experience into a secondary one. So in Jerusalem, in the walled cities of Jerusalem, the actual mitzvah of having a festival meal is pushed off till today, plus the exchanging gifts with friends. This may sound confusing to you, but I'm sharing this with you just to let you know, to give you the heads up, that in Jerusalem this year, Jerusalem, particularly the walled section of, or others say it's the Greater Jerusalem, but anywhere there's a walled city that goes back to the times of Joshua, this year it was a 3-day special called a triple header, a triple Purim, spread over Friday, Shabbos, and Sunday. Now I want to let you know that about 40 years ago, the Lubavitch Rebbe wrote a letter to the community pointing out something very special on this particular year, and explained that here in the United States or anywhere in the world, we should recognize and stand in solidarity with Jerusalem on this particular performance, particular observance. And for us here today, Sunday, to identify with what is going on, particularly in Jerusalem, how they've celebrated over 3 days, and this is the third day. And how could we here express it that way? And the Rebbe writes in his letter, it would be fitting for good and very good that this Sunday, when Jerusalemites are celebrating the third day of Purim, that all of us, wherever we are, should add in our joyful activities. What are the joyful activities? To study words of Torah, elevate us. We should gladden the hearts of other people with feelings of love. And if fitting or necessary, actually send mishloach manos, food items to friends, and of course give gifts to the poor. So we see here that when Shushan Purim falls out on a Shabbos, it impacts the observances in Jerusalem itself over a 3-day period, and we ourselves, even though we here in the United States celebrated it on Friday, we can identify and perform especially these mitzvahs of gladdening people's heart and helping poor people and inspiring ourselves with meaningful thoughts, Torah thoughts. With that introduction, I'd like to continue now on other aspects of what this Purim is all about. See, while Purim is normally one of the happiest days in our calendar, this year it marks a sobering milestone. For all intents and purposes, Purim essentially marks a full year of living through this pandemic, which has radically changed our lives. So while we are beyond gratefulness for the progress with treatments and vaccinations, the return to some sense of normalcy doesn't seem imminent. Not exactly. So in ordinary times, when we met somebody, we would shake their hands. The history of handshakes goes back to the 5th century BCE in Greece. Shaking someone's hand showed that you weren't approaching with a weapon. It was a gesture to communicate that you came in peace, that you posed no threat. During this pandemic, handshaking has become a symbol of threat. And it's now a year since we last shook hands, a year since we hugged anyone outside of our immediate family, a year of distancing from people who we want to feel close to. Who knew a year ago, when we put on our masks for Purim, that we would still be wearing them a full year later? So how can we not be anxious for this to finally end? Frustrated by how long it has gone on, and certainly with how uncertain the future is. So towards the end of the scroll of Esther, we are told that the days chosen to celebrate this holiday of Purim were selected because they were the days that the Jewish people at that time rested from their enemies. For those who may not know, the whole story of Purim was that a wicked man called Haman, prime minister at that time, had this terrible decree out that on the 13th day of Adar, there could be a total genocide of all the Jewish communities living in the 127 countries of the Persian Empire at that time. So when things were over, it became a holiday, But the actual reason for the holiday, it says they rested from their enemies. Now, is that a particular way of choosing a holiday? Shouldn't it be designed more based on their defeat of those who had that ill intent? The defeat of their enemy. They were victorious over their enemy. Why? Because they found peace and rest from their enemy. What's the emphasis on finding peace? The answer lies in the fact that this arch enemy called Haman, his forefather was an Amalekite, who also had the intention of eliminating the Jewish people. And the nation's methodology wasn't just simply to physically attack. He also created a feeling of trying to crush the spirit with breaking the faith, breaking our faith. As you well know, the Torah tells us that the attack, the Amalekites, were unexpected. They came out of a sudden. The people weren't prepared. Amalekite comes suddenly from behind and he startles them. Amalekite thrives on confusing their enemy by evoking a sense of panic and hysteria in their opponent, like a terrorist attack. When they create a paranoia, they instill fear and worry. They deprive people of their sense of tranquility and serenity. When they've done that, they've essentially accomplished their goal. They have won. Well, the exile of Persia, in which the Purim story takes place, is actually characterized by a lot of chaos, craziness, frenzy, hysteria. When they come to get Haman, to bring him to Esther's party, the Megillah says they scrambled to bring him. They rushed, they came suddenly, they came hurriedly. Because this whole period of time is characterized by confusion, by panic. The power of the Amalekites is to take away one's peace of mind, to be a disruptor. That was Haman's goal. To complicate, to disrupt, to destroy, to exterminate. Create this whole confusion. Now, there is an Amalekite energy, in a certain sense, a certain negative voice that sometimes we carry, which is panic, be hysterical, have no peace of mind, be anxious, be worried, deprived of happiness and calmness. You know the famous joke. A guy receives a telegram from his mother, and she writes there, "Start worrying, details to follow." Well, in a certain deeper sense, we defeat this Amalekite that exists around us when we find the capacity to show faith, to stay calm, and to carry on with confidence. That is why, the sages explain, the holiday of Purim isn't focused on the physical defeat of the Haman, but specifically when there was peace of mind, when serenity was restored, and they found a way to be calm, to live with confidence, to have a peace of mind, and to find the faith no matter what. Panicking, becoming frantic, worrying about what is, what will be, stressing over things that we cannot control is an influence of yesteryear, of a Amalekite, something totally foreign to us. It's the voice of those who seek to deprive humanity of happiness, to rob us of serenity. It's not who we are and who we can be. We are people, all of us, who have deep faith. And we believe when we take the initiative, we make our effort, and we believe by taking this initiative, we express how much we rely on our Creator. So as challenging as these times have been and remain, we should not forfeit our lives and our happiness in the very month in which we are told to be happy than ever, to have greater confidence and trust, to believe that there is something so much bigger than ourselves, and therefore to find the capacity to stay calm. In 1939, in preparation for the World War II, in an effort to raise the morale of the British public. You may not know this, but the British government then printed 2.5 million copies of a poster that was to be hung in all major cities in England. And it displayed a simple message that still resonates all these many years later. The banner read simply, "Keep calm and carry on. Keep calm and carry on." There's still so much we cannot control, so many variables we cannot predict. One of the few things we can regulate is our peace of mind. So, as we come up now to a year of wearing this mask, let us make an extra effort to be mindful of the impact of those craziness things, this Amalekite concept that tries to upend our serenity, our peace of mind, and to pledge, no matter what, keep calm and carry on. Keep calm and carry on. Keep calm and carry on. Now, in this country, we were talking about the peace of mind and helping the poor, which is one of the mitzvahs of Purim called Matanas Levionim, and how in Jerusalem, in the walled city of Jerusalem, today is the day when they actually the exchange gifts, and on Friday went out of our way to find poor people. This brings me to the age-old debate about taxes. It's the tax season, right? We all know, all those members of our shul who are involved in taxes somehow always come to shul or tell me, "Oi, this is the tax season, the tax season." Some say we should raise taxes on the richest Americans and lower taxes on the poorest Americans. Others claim that this would destroy America's economy. But long before America talked about taxes, in the Megillah that we read on Friday, Esther talks, in the Megillah itself, talks about taxes. In the Megillah, generally speaking, we read the Megillah with great interest. But when it comes to the very end, where everybody gets tired, there's something in the last 3 verses that contains a line that no one really pays attention to. It says, after the Megillah tells us that Mordechai became the king Achashverosh's right-hand man, that he and Esther established the holiday of Purim. And there's one verse that seems to have no connection to the entire Megillah. And it says there, check it out, "And the king Achashverosh put a tax on the land and the islands of the sea." Now, what does Achashverosh putting a tax on everyone have to do with the Purim story? And the Rebbe, the Lubavitcher Rebbe, points out in a talk that it was Mordechai who influenced King Achashverosh as his right-hand man to levy a tax on the citizens of the kingdom, which at that time was a world superpower. And that is why this detail is mentioned in the Megillah, because Mordechai was the one who was instrumental in the taxes at that time to be raised. Now, this may be the reason why it says right there that he was only liked by most of his brothers. Not everybody, maybe they didn't like him totally because of the taxes. But the question is, what does it mean to us? Why did Mordechai encourage and push the king to impose a tax? My friends, this is a very, very beautiful and important insight. The Rebbe explains, it's not good for a person to only be a receiver. For citizens to only get from the country and not give back. We all remember the famous words. Don't ask what the country can give you, but what you can give the country. For the world to work properly, everyone must be a giver too, not just a receiver. Everyone must contribute their part for the general good. That's why it's healthy for a country to have a minimal basic tax on everyone, including the poor. I'm not getting involved in the current debate and what to do, when to do, but the concept is an appropriate one. Everyone should feel they contribute to society in some way. Now, you may know that in the Torah portions, we're reading about the building of the Mishkan. This was the traveling temple in the wilderness. And even there we find the concept of a tax. In order to fund the sacrifices, there was a half a shekel imposed on everyone each year. And everybody, and there's an emphasis in the Torah itself, that the rich should not give more and the poor should not give less. Everybody equally gave this half a shekel. When it came to the building of the general construction, there was left to everybody's needs and everybody's desires. And as the Torah tells us, that people gave so much that they gave more than they needed. But the concept was that everybody should be a contributor. Now, we're not talking about basic money. That too, for those who can, and all of us should be helpful, but also to be kind and to be generous with our time to help someone else, with our talents, our ability to help other people. It's the same idea, to give it and to give it generously. So in a certain sense, over the holiday of Purim, when we read about Mordechai's leadership and how Achashverosh placed a tax, and it's included in the Megillah, because at the end of the day, any celebration, any aspect of our life must always have that dimension of being a giver, not just a taker. And that, I think, is a very fascinating idea that we have with Purim in particular, because there is a mitzvah to always help. There's always a mitzvah to extend oneself for a friend. But typically, if someone comes knocking, we are obligated to help. But on Purim, the uniqueness of Purim is that we go out of our way to find that poor person, or to put the money into charity box and to make sure it gets to poor people. Like we make an effort, an enthusiastic effort to want to give friends items of food, to create gladness of heart and closeness and friendship. We become proactive in our efforts to create a peaceful society and serenity that we're talking about, and making a difference in the world around us. And this is, my friends, a coming out of the weekend of Purim, what to have in mind. Again, as I began, in Jerusalem, in the walled cities, they celebrate Purim on the 15th day of the month of Adar, because it took an extra day before they could celebrate in the capital of Shushan. And Shushan was a walled city, so in order to connect it to the Holy Land, any city that had walls from the time of Joshua, they celebrated on the 15th day. But this year, because it was a Shabbos, and Shabbos has the certain prohibitions. You can't carry. You cannot undermine the spirit of Shabbos. So the actual mitzvahs, as I explained, are divided now kind of distributed over the 3 days. So on Friday in Jerusalem, they read the Megillah. That was one of the mitzvahs. They did not forget the poor, and right away gave matanas levionim. They went out their way to find the poor people. So those are 2 mitzvahs. Shabbos, we don't read the Megillah, obviously, because you may come to carry it. You don't have the meal of Purim, the festival meal, because you don't want to take away from the important Shabbos meal. We don't want to dilute that. So on Sunday, today, even as I speak, in Jerusalem itself, they are now exchanging food items with friends, which again is not done on a Shabbos, and they don't give gifts on Shabbos, and they're having the festival meal, and they're dressing up. In Jerusalem, you'll see them dressed up in the in the costumes, etc., and how we ourselves, at the encouragement and the urging of the Rabbi, some 40 years ago, that we can identify and we should stand in solidarity by adding some aspects of joy and happiness right here, even though we've all celebrated it on Friday. How can we do that? What brings us joy is learning, study. That brings us joy. But it's not just about ourselves. Let's find others who we can uplift and add gladness of heart to them by either giving them, Mashalach Monas, maybe you didn't give them an item, call them, uplift their spirits, and of course, if we have also to give money to poor people, anything that will uplift people's hearts around us to overcome this sense of insecurity that still remains amongst us during these very uncertain times. But at the same time, think about this. We all know when Purim passes, what's coming next? Yes, my dear friends, less than a month will be the holiday of Passover. And the Talmud tells us that there's a direct connection because Mismach Geula LeGeula, we connect two holidays that relate to redemption. The redemption in the story of Purim and the redemption from Egypt in the holiday of Passover. So again, dear friends, let us keep in mind the holidays coming. Let's not wait till the last minute, as we often do in preparations for Pesach, but to prepare for it, both physically, of course, and spiritually as well. And this year, I hope, with God's help, we'll have some friends, some family. Remember, last year we all sat alone, literally alone. I remember the first time in my life, I just sat with Bluma. Our community was not there. Our family was not there. Everybody was in their own place. It was strange. And we don't want to go back to that. So, dear friends, hopefully this year it'll be less relaxed. We'll have more relaxed. We'll be able to get together at least with a minimum, with some social distancing, etc. But most importantly, to prepare ourselves properly, and may we merit very, very speedily that we'll come to the ultimate redemption, a redemption that means goodness and kindness, which means that no more illness, no more famine, no more jealousy, no more wars. The entire world, literally the entire world, would recognize the Almighty God. There'll be greatness and peace in the land in every single sense. My dear friends, this is your host, Rabbi Perl. Thanking you so much. Keep listening. Have a wonderful day. Enjoy, celebrate Purim, and looking forward to good news for all of us.
1, 2, 3, 4.